To build the sides of your jar, we're going to use a very popular clay technique called coiling. Let's actually begin with the base that we made yesterday. We want to make sure it's the correct thickness, it's nice and circular, and ready to go. We're going to start by peeling off a chunk of clay. We'll set our base off to the side for now. And what we want to do with our clay is to start to squish it in between our hands to get ready to build a coil. So kind of give it a couple good squeezes. And then from there, we're going to start to roll that clay all the way up and all the way down. Fingers to palm, all the way up, all the way down. As you're rolling your coil out, you want to make sure that it rolls nice and smooth. If you get kind of a flat bump, it's most likely because you're not rolling all the way up and all the way down. You're staying in one spot. It can get kind of flat and bumpy like this. To fix it, just again roll all the way up and all the way down, and you'll have a successful coil. Another issue you may have while building your coil is that one side of the coil is a little bit thicker than the other. To fix this problem, simply apply a little bit more pressure on the thick side to make sure that the entire coil is the same thickness. To check and see if your coil is done, simply compare it to your index finger. If it's about the same thickness, then you're done. Now let's take that coil and attach it to our base. We're going to take one end of our coil and stack it straight on top of the edge of our base. It should be straight up and down, nice and flush. You don't want your coil to roll out because then you're going to get a bowl. And you don't want it to roll in because then it's going to come to a point. Stack it straight on top. We're going to roll that coil all the way around the edge, making sure again it's stacked right on top. And when you get to where you began with your coil, you're simply going to push down and stack that coil right on top of itself, kind of like a snake would coil up. If you look to the side here, we want to make sure we push down in here so we don't have a hole, but just stack that coil right on top so it's standing straight up and down. Now that we have one coil laid down on our jar, we're ready to make another one. Again, we're going to rip a small chunk off, set our jar off to the side, squeeze it in between our hands, kind of back and forth, to make sure it's all ready to go. And again, to make sure it's successful, we want to roll it all the way up and all the way down. Fingers to palms, all the way up, all the way down. Also, make sure you're checking for even consistency. You want to have consistent pressure all the way through so you don't have a chunky part of your coil or a skinny part. It should all be the same thickness. When your coil is done, we're going to pull that jar back out and begin to attach the second coil to the first by matching end to end, kind of smooshing them together just a little bit, and then again laying your coil directly on top of the one underneath. Stack it straight up and down, keep coiling around. I'm going to check my side here to make sure it's going straight up and down. And then if we check, we want to make sure that all those little gaps are filled in. So kind of squish your coils down in so there's no holes. And we want our jar to be about 4 to 5 coils high, not including your base. So I'm going to add a couple more coils here. So right now my jar is about 4 coils high, again not including the base, and I'm pretty satisfied. So I'm going to begin to smooth. I'm going to use the flat part of my wooden tool here, dip it in a little bit of water, and then I'm going to begin to blend these coils together. So you can either work from the bottom up, or you can work from the top down, but you want to apply a little bit of pressure here to get that nice smooth edge. Remember, we're going to be adding hieroglyphics to our jar, so we want a nice smooth surface to work on. If it's easier, you can keep your jar on the table to smooth it. Either way, try to blend those coils together as best you can. And when you're done blending with a wooden tool, you'll notice you still kind of have a rough surface. So if you take your finger, wet it just a tiny bit, you can go through and smooth out the surface of your jar a little bit more so. So again, we have a nice soft surface to write our hieroglyphics on. Once you're all done smoothing the outside of your jar, you may have to go in and give your jar a little bit of a hug to squish it back into that nice circular shape. Then give your jar one final look through, make sure everything is nice and smooth, and if you want, you are more than welcome to smooth the inside of your jar if you'd like to. Some people like to keep the coils like that, some people like to smooth it. It's totally up to you. But when you're done, you have your jar.